The storm clouds gathered heavily over the isolated island of Eirendor, casting a shroud of darkness that mirrored the sorrow lingering within its ancient forests. Elara Solis, an archaeologist with a penchant for the supernatural, had arrived just as the skies split open with torrents of rain. This wasn't just any island. It was a place long whispered about in legends, a forgotten land where the spirits of those lost to time still roamed. Elara had heard tales of an artifact hidden in Eirendor, a relic said to grant unimaginable power to whoever could unlock its mysteries. The artifact was rumored to be in an ancient temple buried deep within the heart of the island's forest, a place few dared to tread. Many had attempted to retrieve it, only to vanish without a trace. Standing at the edge of the dark forest, Elara felt a strange energy in the air, an unspoken invitation, or perhaps a warning. Her heart pounded with both fear and anticipation as she took her first step onto the trail that would lead her into the unknown. Each step felt heavier than the last as she ventured deeper. Shadows danced around her, and every now and then, a faint whisper would echo through the trees, as if the spirits of Eirendor were aware of her presence. The undergrowth grew thicker, the branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, brushing against her face and arms. She shivered, feeling a chill that was not merely from the dampness of the rain. After what felt like hours, she finally caught sight of the temple, a crumbling structure that seemed to defy time itself. The stone pillars were covered in strange carvings, their meaning lost to history. A large stone door stood at the entrance, partially obscured by vines, and on it was an inscription in an ancient language she barely recognized. Her fingers traced the words, feeling their weight and power. "Only the one who dares to confront the past shall gain the strength to wield the future," she murmured, translating the inscription aloud. The words echoed around her, and a sudden gust of wind howled through the trees, as if in response. Elara hesitated, the weight of the inscription's meaning settling over her like a dark omen. She knew the island's legends well, stories of explorers and seekers of power who had tried to open the temple, only to be claimed by the spirits of Eirendor. Yet, something compelled her to proceed. Perhaps it was her curiosity, or perhaps it was the faint, insistent pull of the unknown. With trembling hands, she pushed against the heavy stone door, feeling it resist at first before slowly creaking open. The air inside the temple was thick, stale, as though it hadn't been disturbed in centuries. Flickers of torchlight illuminated ancient symbols etched into the walls, their designs shifting as if alive, watching her every move. She cautiously stepped inside, her footsteps echoing in the vast silence. As she moved deeper into the temple, she noticed a long corridor lined with statues, each figure cloaked in shadow, their faces shrouded beneath hoods. Their stone eyes seemed to follow her, piercing through the dim light. The feeling of being watched grew more intense, each statue casting an ominous shadow that flickered with the shifting flames. Finally, she reached the inner chamber, where the artifact was said to be held. In the center of the room, on a pedestal carved with intricate symbols, rested a small obsidian orb. It glowed faintly, pulsing as though it held a heartbeat of its own. Elara felt an inexplicable pull toward it, her hand reaching out almost of its own accord. But as her fingers brushed the surface of the orb, a chill surged through her, and the room seemed to shift. The statues lining the corridor began to whisper in voices too faint to discern, their eerie chant echoing through the chamber. Shadows lengthened, swirling around her, and suddenly she felt herself pulled into a vision. In the vision, she saw glimpses of the past, a young warrior, fierce and noble, battling against an unseen force, an old scholar with knowledge beyond his years, poring over ancient texts, and a healer, gentle but resolute, standing before a council. Each figure looked strikingly familiar, as though she had known them in another life. And each of them met the same fate. They reached for the orb, only to be engulfed by darkness. Elara pulled herself out of the vision, gasping. The artifact lay before her, as silent and unyielding as ever. The question now gnawed at her mind. Was the power within the orb a blessing or a curse? The question haunted her, echoing within the silence of the ancient chamber. Elara's fingers trembled as they hovered over the orb, the whispers of the statues intensifying, urging her to either seize the artifact or abandon it forever. She could feel the weight of the past in the air. The young warrior, the scholar, the healer, all of whom had come before her and failed. Closing her eyes, Elara centered herself, willing her mind to quiet. The pull of the orb was unlike anything she'd ever felt, a magnetic force luring her in, promising knowledge and power beyond comprehension. But she remembered the inscription at the entrance. Only the one who dares to confront the past shall gain the strength to wield the future. It seemed that the orb required more than mere possession. It demanded understanding, sacrifice. Taking a deep breath, she placed her hands fully upon the orb, bracing herself for whatever came next. The world around her faded, and she found herself once more in the realm of visions. But this time, she was not a mere observer. She was living each memory, feeling each emotion as if they were her own. In the vision, she became the warrior, standing alone against an unseen enemy in the dead of night, the weight of honor and duty pressing upon her shoulders. She fought valiantly, but the darkness swallowed her, dragging her down until there was nothing left. The scene shifted, and she became the scholar, burdened by the weight of forbidden knowledge. His mind was a labyrinth of truths and secrets, a maze of wisdom that tore at his sanity. He clutched the orb, hoping it would provide clarity, but instead, he found only madness. Again, the vision transformed, and she was now the healer, her hands stained with the blood of those she had failed to save. She reached for the orb, her heart heavy with grief and regret, hoping it would grant her the power to undo her mistakes. But the shadows took her, pulling her into a void from which there was no return. Elara gasped as the visions released her, her spirit feeling as though it had been torn apart and stitched back together. She staggered, her hands still on the orb, but her mind now clear. Each figure had been haunted by their past, their regrets, and their unfulfilled desires. The power of the orb wasn't a gift. It was a burden, a mirror that revealed one's darkest fears and insecurities. Understanding this, Elara steadied herself. She had come seeking power, but what she had found was a warning. She now knew that she could never leave the temple with the orb, for its power would consume her just as it had the others. But there was one choice left to her, a way to break the cycle. Elara's hands remained steady on the orb as she summoned all her willpower, drawing upon the lessons from each vision. The warrior had succumbed to pride, the scholar to knowledge untempered by wisdom, and the healer to guilt and unfulfilled responsibility. Each had sought the orb's power to escape their burdens, only to be trapped by them forever. But Elara, now understanding this, chose a different path. Taking a deep, grounding breath, she spoke into the silence of the chamber, her voice strong and clear. "I release you," she whispered, her words carrying both command and compassion. "The past is beyond my power to change, and the future is unwritten. I seek not control, but understanding. I will confront my weaknesses without letting them define me." The effect was immediate. The orb began to glow, its light softening from an ominous black to a warm, ethereal gold. The shadows around her retreated, as if acknowledging her decision. The whispering statues seemed to sigh, their voices blending into a harmonious hum that filled the chamber with a sense of peace. As the orb's glow intensified, Elara could feel a change within herself, a deep sense of acceptance and balance. It was as though she was being freed from the weight of her own doubts and fears. She had faced the darkness within herself and emerged unbroken, not because she sought to dominate it, but because she had learned to coexist with it. In one final, brilliant flash, the orb melted into her hands, transforming into a warm energy that pulsed through her veins. When the light faded, the temple was empty, the statues stood silent, and the once haunted shadows lay still. The chamber had become tranquil, as if it, too, had been released from centuries of burden. Elara turned and left the temple, the weight of the experience settling over her like a mantle. She had come seeking power, and while she had not taken the orb, she left with something far more valuable: the wisdom to wield her own strength. As she stepped out into the sunlight, she felt a newfound clarity and peace, understanding that she was now, in some way, a guardian of Eirendor's legacy. The island's whispers faded as she walked away, leaving behind the echoes of those who had come before. She knew she would return to her own world with a quiet strength, carrying the lessons of Eirendor with her wherever she went. And though the world would never know of the ancient temple or the orb it held, Elara knew that some mysteries were best kept hidden, their secrets locked away in the hearts of those who dared to understand them.